The Louisville men's basketball program has gained momentum in the 2023 number one overall prospect DJ Wagner's recruitment. We will talk about what a possible commitment from Wagner could mean for the program on this episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. I serve as a credential media member for Cardinal Sports Zone. I also do some PA announcing work for the university in various sports. And I want to take this time to personally thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. As I mentioned in the opener, we'll be talking about DJ Wagner and the Louisville Cardinals gaining momentum in his recruitment and what a commitment from the number one prospect in the 2023 class could mean for the Cardinals. We will then transition over into the women's basketball side of things and start to talk about what the roster is going to look like for next season. And then finally, we will wrap up the show discussing the Louisville baseball's 4-2 victory over the rival Kentucky Wildcats on Tuesday evening. But we'll start out talking about DJ Wagner. Over the past week or so, there have been multiple, if you follow high school recruiting, the services and stuff like that, like 24/7 Sports, Rivals, they have things called crystal balls, or I forget what Rivals calls them, forecasts or something along that nature. But crystal ball is basically a prediction of where a prospect is going to go, which DJ Wagner has picked up 3 crystal balls over the past week, one from national recruiting insider Travis Branham, one from Cardinal Authority's Michael McCammon, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was one put in most recently from Chad Likens from the Duke 24/7 Sports site. So this is a recruitment that, when Kenny Payne got hired, and really even before Kenny Payne got hired, it seemed like this recruitment was going to be one in which the two rival schools between Louisville and Kentucky were going to battle it out for, and could quite possibly be the biggest recruiting battle between the two schools up to date. For those who are not aware, DJ Wagner's father, DeJuan Wagner, played under Coach Calipari, in which he was then drafted into the NBA in the first round. However, DJ Wagner's grandfather is Louisville great Milt Wagner. So obviously you see the family ties there. There's a lot to unpack in the recruitment in terms of, the family ties and the connections and everything along that nature. So I don't think that it really should surprise anyone that for pretty much the past year and a half or so, Kentucky has seemed like a lock for, DJ Wagner's, commitment and ultimate national letter of intent. And then Kenny Payne gets hired at Louisville. And that's where you start to see things get a little bit interesting because, some national insiders bring up the notion that, hey, look, Louisville is going to be right in the mix with DJ Wagner. Milt and Kenny are very, very close. Obviously, Milt is close with William Wesley, Uncle Wes, as Nolan Smith called him. And obviously Kenny and William Wesley are extremely, extremely close. So there's just a lot of connections across the board. So Louisville gets into the mix with Wagner. And ultimately, over the past week or so, the confidence has been growing that, hey, potentially the Cardinals sit in the driver's seat for the number one overall recruit in the 2023 class. So the question now becomes, I want to answer this question. What would a commitment from Wagner mean for this program? Let me go ahead and state for the record, I don't necessarily think that this is going to be a recruitment that, ends very soon. I think that, although Louisville may be in the league currently, I definitely would not rule out Kentucky. I would not rule out Calipari, especially with his relationship to, DeJuan. So I think that this is going to be, a recruiting battle for the ages between the two, in-state rivals. And this is a recruitment that probably, heads through to the summer. And depending on when DJ looks to make his commitment, I think it'll go down to the wire up until he makes that commitment. So there has been talks about DJ reclassifying. It seems like for now, I'm not going to say the consensus, but the feeling around the recruitment is that he's probably going to stay at Camden for his senior season and come to college in the 2023 cycle. For those who are not aware, if he were to reclassify, he would have to stay in college for 2 seasons due to his age, like Amani Bates has had to do. So ultimately, I think that this is going to remain a 2023 battle versus a reclassification battle. But ultimately, in terms of what it would mean for the program, number one, on the court, Wagner is an elite prospect. When you see what national 24/7 Sports insider Eric Bossi had to say, Wagner began his career as the top-ranked player in the class of 2023 and comes from a family with strong basketball bloodlines. At his core, he's a combination guard he's a combination guard who specializes in filling it up. Though not an overwhelming athlete, Wagner is very skilled and quite clever in his scoring. He gets to the rim, has an array of floaters, pull-up jumpers, and can fire away from deep. And that's kind of the takeaway that I take away from watching Wagner, whether that be in high school ball or on the EYBL circuit, is the fact that he is an advanced 3-level scorer, can create his own offense. And like I mentioned, whenever I do any type of draft scouting or anything like that, I think the skill that I prioritize the most in terms of projecting a player to possibly be a star is their ability to create their own offense. And a lot of times that comes in terms of shot creation. He's very solid off the dribble, can utilize the catch and shoot situations, as Bossy mentioned. Very solid from deep and is able to take his man on one-on-one. So on the court, I think it speaks for itself. You're getting a star-level player that is projected to be a top 5, top 10 level NBA draft pick. So it speaks for itself. I think that the real significance, and I'm not saying that the significance doesn't come on the court, but I think that there's a ton of significance that comes off the court as well. Number one, it would likely be the first recruiting win that the University of Louisville has truly had over John Calipari since he took over in Lexington in 2009. Yeah, 2009, the fall of 2009. So, every single recruiting battle, whether it's Rick Pitino, Chris Mack, whoever the head coach was, Kentucky has had their way with Louisville on the recruiting trail. If there's been a prospect that is down between Louisville and Kentucky has come out on top. Marcus Teague, Trey Lyles, De'Aaron Fox, the list goes on. This would be the first recruitment in which the Cardinals come out on top over Kentucky. So I think that in itself is significant. And number two, and this might be even a little bit more, pivotal for this program, is it gives you that, that program-changing type of prospect. And what I mean by that, if you think back to when John Calipari took over at Kentucky, he gets the commitment from John Wall, and I think that set the tone for what was to come at Kentucky. Now, who's to say that if he doesn't get John Wall in the 2009 class, or I think it was the class of 2009, that he doesn't, get it, more great prospects in, the next class. But John Wall really set the tone for what, recruiting was going to look like at Kentucky in terms of, the type of prospect, the highly rated, top 10, top 15 prospect that was likely going to be a top pick in the NBA draft. Now, obviously, hindsight is 2020, so I caution you to look at this as me saying, oh, Wagner is going to be a number one pick as well, and he's going to be an All-America and one of the best players in college basketball. I'm not necessarily going out on a limb and predicting that, but what I am saying is that the overall weight of a commitment of that nature, of a highly touted prospect of that nature in DJ Wagner, would, serve as the John Wall commitment for, the early days of John Calipari in Lexington. Like DJ Wagner, his commitment would play the same role that John Wall's commitment played for John Calipari. Top talent wants to play with top talent. There's been, discussions. It seems like rumors that Aaron Bradshaw, the 5-star center in the 2023 class, may be playing with DJ Wagner at the collegiate level. So, and obviously playing with the number one overall player seems like it would be a move that many highly rated guys would consider. So there's a lot of benefits to a commitment from the number one overall player. Obviously, on the court, you're getting a player that could end up as a top 5-10 draft pick. You have the opportunity to finally win a recruiting battle against John Calipari, and you set the tone for what is to come in the Kenny Payne era here at the University of Louisville. He would become the highest rated recruit in school history. So it would just be a commitment unlike any other in terms of caliber for the Louisville program. Obviously, like I'm saying, this is just a hypothetical. I personally don't think that this is a recruitment that is going to end anytime soon. If it does, obviously you would probably think it's probably going to be a reclassification, but at this point, it seems like all signs are pointing to him staying in the 2023 class. And, I think you would probably assume that the fall may be the earliest before you see a commitment from Wagner. But hey, that is no inside information, just my intuition speaking. So, but we'll take this time now to kind of transition over into women's basketball, where the team has filled all 15 scholarships. We will discuss what the roster may look like for the 2022-23 campaign after we talk about our friends over at Built Bar. Late April, as we're in right now, I don't even think the word resolution usually comes out of my mouth past February. I kind of build it up throughout, the month of December. I'm like, I'm going to, hit this journey hard and I'm going to focus on my goals. But, it seems like my will to, keep those goals always falters. But this year, my goal to eat right has been, kept intact. And a lot of that is thanks in part to Built Bar. It feels like it's not even really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. They're a fan favorite. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. They're the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They're low calorie, high in protein. You can go to built.com and scroll down to the macros chart to check out all of the nutritional aspects of it, from mint brownie, coconut, almond, etc., to cookies and cream, white chocolate cookies and cream. The list goes on. There are a handful of different flavors that you can choose from. At Built Bar, they are all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. So do yourself a favor. Go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Once again, that's use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Hey, Louisville fans, thanks again for making Locked On Louisville your first listen every day. As I mentioned earlier this week and late last week, a big announcement is here starting Thursday, April 28th. Tune in to Locked On NFL Draft's live coverage of the 2022 NFL Draft with all 3 days of real-time analysis from our extensive lineup of experts and insiders. And for those of you dying to know who your team will take, catch Odyssey and Locked On's NFL Mock Draft Special hosted by Brian Peacock and former scout Matt Williamson of the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show all week leading up to the first pick. Okay, so we talked about Morgan Jones being added to the roster to Jeff Walz' team on yesterday's show. I wanted to now kind of take a step back, look at the roster as a whole. All 15 scholarships are accounted for at the moment. Now, hey, whether or not those scholarships ultimately end up being used, well, I think that is, obviously those scholarships are going to be used. But whether or not, this roster is going to remain the same in terms of personnel between now and the start of the season, well, I think that is probably not going to be the case. It seems like Jeff Walz is still going after players in the portal. I know that there have been various media members that have claimed that there may be another addition soon on the horizon. The writing would then at that point be on the wall that there is going to be likely at least one more departure from this upcoming team. But let's take a look at what the roster is looking like currently. Guard play, you have obviously Hailey Van Lith and Morgan Jones as your, probably your locks to be starters. You have Mikasa Robinson, Alana Smith coming back for their COVID season. Narika Kono is back, Marissa Russell, Peyton Verhulst, and then you have, incoming freshmen Ziona Walker and Jalen Brown. At the forward positions, obviously Olivia Cochran and Liz Dixon are back. You have Sydney Shetnan, who will also be playing volleyball this fall. Alexia Mobley is playing this season, coming off of her redshirt season. And then you have incoming freshmen Nyla Harris and Imani Lester. So there are some questions about this upcoming roster. There's two aspects that I want to focus on. Number one is, does Jeff Walz see Hailey Van Lith as the number one lead guard for next season, and whether or not she's going to be the shooting guard or viewed as more of a lead ball handler? That is the question to be answered. Obviously, we've seen that Hailey can create her own offense. Her shot has been coming around. It came around all at the end of ACC, basically all throughout ACC play this past season. So you have Hailey back, and as I mentioned, Morgan Jones adds a lot of defense and toughness and athleticism and shot creation and offense in the mid-range to this Louisville backcourt, which is definitely needed. Mikasa Robinson, Alana Smith, situational players that are going to be, I guess that would kind of be a little bit of a disservice to the two, because they are going to play, I guess you could say, rotational minutes, because I think that you're going to see both of those players playing a good amount of minutes. Mikasa maybe even starting. But in that case, Narika Kono played some rotational minutes last season. It looks like she will likely be in that same role this upcoming year, and that's where the that's where the rest of the backcourt committee is going to need to step up. Marissa Russell has not necessarily seen a ton of time outside of some garbage minutes over the past season or so. Peyton Verhulst showed some aspects of potential throughout ACC play. I think that she takes the next step forward. We're going to see her take a big step forward in her game, and I think that her role is, she could definitely be one of the most improved players on this team and could definitely possibly be a starter in 2022. The incoming freshman is where the questions lie. Ziona Walker, Jalen Brown. Ziona Walker, one of the best, if not the best prospect in the state of Kansas. It's likely that she's going to see some rotational minutes. Jalen Brown, I'm not necessarily sure if she's going to see a clear-cut, distinguished role in the rotation. In terms of the other question that I have that I was talking about is, okay, is Jeff Walz going to add a true post presence in terms of, addressing the size aspect of it? Now, it seems like, Jeff Walz kind of took a little bit, he kind of made light of the questions that the fan base and the media was asking, basically kind of saying, I'm being begged to record I'm sorry, to recruit. I can't even speak today. It has been a long day. But I digress. I think that, Jeff Walz has made light of the fact that, the fan base has tried to persuade him to recruit more size. And I think that, Jeff Walz knows exactly what this team needs. He apparently has been recruiting two post players, both over 6'4", from Oregon State. So it seems like Jeff Walz knows exactly what he's doing. Spoiler alert, he does know what he's doing. But assuming that they are just going to roll with the players that they have currently, obviously you bring back your two post presences from last year, Olivia Cochran and Liz Dixon, who will see the majority of the minutes in the front court. The power forward position or the stretch four is going to be the role that I'm interested to see who takes over. You have Alexia Mobley, the athletic forward from Ohio, I believe 6'2", is going to probably be a leading candidate to replace Emily Ingsler in that role. Nyla Harris and Amani Lester. Harris more of a Nyla Harris is probably more of a wing than a true post player. Amani Lester, I would say, is probably more of a post player than she is a wing. So we will see how those two are utilized in the rotation. You also have Sydney Shetnan, who is 6'5", that didn't necessarily play a lot of minutes this past season, will be playing volleyball in the fall. So it seems like Cochran and Dixon will have the majority of the minutes in the front court, but there is a big question mark at the power forward position. There also is a big question at the point guard position. Does Jeff Walz look to utilize the transfer portal to address those needs, or does he roll with his personnel? And if he does decide to address those needs, who is likely going to be on the way out entering the transfer portal? Hopefully we will have some answers to that here in the next couple of weeks. But obviously this is going to be another roster that is likely going to make a run, a deep one in the NCAA tournament. So at the end of the day, I'm very excited for the season that is to come. So to finish out the show, I want to talk about some good news. The baseball team has defeated the rival Kentucky Wildcats 4-2 on Tuesday evening. We will talk about that contest and how the Cardinals have struggled a little bit in ACC play over the past couple weeks. We will do that here in just a second after we talk about our friends over at Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to store all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry when you have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket? It allows you to save time and money. When using Rock Auto, it's a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The prices are reliably low for every customer. They have an easy-to-use website that you can go explore to find the solution to your auto parts needs. That website is rockauto.com, and you can see all the parts available for your car or truck. If you write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, they will know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Final segment of the show is dedicated to the Louisville baseball team, who came out victorious over the Kentucky Wildcats on Tuesday evening. The Cardinals defeated their rivals from Lexington 4-2. This was a bullpen game from the beginning for the Cardinals. Kyle Walter started the game and pitched a shutout inning. He is now 2-0 on the season as he was accredited with the victory. The Cardinals struck first with a Cam Masterman solo home run to begin the game in the bottom of the first. Jack Payton then had a 2 RBI single in the third. UK would then answer in the sixth with a sac fly. Louisville would erase that Kentucky comeback when Dalton Rushing walked, which then scored Isaac Humphrey. But in the ninth, a double from UK made things interesting, but Michael Prosecki shut the door for the save against the rival Wildcats. What's interesting is the fact that Kentucky actually out-hit Louisville in the hit column, recording 8 hits to Louisville's 4, but it was the Cardinals pitching staff that got it done against the Kentucky Wildcats. Louisville moves to 25-11. Kentucky, on the other hand, 21-16. the 11th ranked Cardinals. As I mentioned, the win was attributed to Kyle Walter. Carson Leggett, or I think it might be Leggett, pitched an inning of two-hit baseball. Cade Grundy pitched 2/3 of an inning, followed by 1 1/3 from Tate Keener, who usually has been the Friday starter. Alex Galvan had a 1 inning pitched. He gave up an earned run and 2 walks. Ryan Hawks, 2 innings of 1-hit baseball. Caleb Corbett, 2/3 innings of 1-hit ball. And Michael Persecki shut the door on Kentucky with 1 1/3 innings of 1 run, 1-hit baseball. 2 walks, 2 strikeouts to go in that stat line. That is his 7th save of the season. But I will be honest, there has been a lot of concern for the baseball program over the past couple weeks. They have lost the last 2 out of their 3 ACC series. They lost their first series against Pittsburgh. Ultimately came back to defeat North Carolina and take that series 2-3, and ultimately ended up getting swept by Florida State this past weekend, which has, some people questioning what gives, what needs to change for the Cardinals moving forward. Well, I think that it's really just a matter of, pitching consistency and overall erasing the mental mistakes. How many times this season have we seen a dropped fly ball or an error in the infield cost the runs, cost some very, crucial, important runs that have ultimately been the difference in certain games. I'm not saying that this team is a bad fielding team, but eliminating some of these mistakes really could go a long way. The Friday game, it should have been a game that Louisville was right in from the beginning. A costly error, gave Florida State, I think, 5 runs in the first inning. And that is just extremely tough to come back from. But the Cardinals' offense is really not necessarily something that I worry about. As I mentioned before the season, OPS is something that I value more so than batting average. I feel like it tells the story a little bit better with at-bats. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 players. 7 players that have at least 100 at-bats for the Cardinals with over a 900 OPS. 3 of those players have over a 1 OPS, which is incredible. That's Ben Metzinger, Dalton Rushing, and Cam Masterman. Christian Knapczyk is right behind them. Jack Payton, Isaac Humphrey, and Ben Bianco. So, this is a Louisville offense that has shown that it can put up a lot of runs and it can do so in a hurry. But until the pitching staff is able to find some things out, find some consistency, not only with the starters, but with the pen as well, I think that this team cannot take the next step forward. Obviously, when it comes to the starters, it looked like early on in the season, Tate Keener was kind of serving as the rock, as the Friday starter. He struggled in his past X amount of outings. He got an inning of work against Kentucky, which hopefully that can get his confidence back, but he's struggled a little bit. Jared Poland has probably been the most consistent out of all the Cardinals pitchers. ERA-wise, for starters, he's got a 2.57 ERA. So overall, I think that it's hard to kind of depict what the rotation is going to look like going forward. Riley Phillips was a player that, playing very solid for the first month or so of the season, the 6'4" southpaw sophomore. However, in his past 3 outings, look, he struggled. Pittsburgh, 5 innings of work, 4 earned runs, 3 innings against North Carolina, 5 runs, 7 hits, and then Florida State, 1 1/3 innings of work, 3 earned runs, and 3 hits. So I think that there has to be some consistency. Dan McDonnell tried Caleb Corbett as the Friday starter against Florida State. Obviously, that was a little bit tainted with the error in the first inning. So you had to find some consistency there in the bullpen. That's kind of where things go as well. You need to find some consistency there. Kind of looking to see where you have Alex Galvan, who has a 1.35 ERA. Michael Persecki has been very, very solid, 2.05 ERA. Obviously, Poland has been good. Cade Grundy, Jacob Ferris, Evan Webster, Garrett Schmeltz, Ben Wigman. There's a handful of guys that, don't get me wrong. This pitching staff has the stuff and they have the talent to really be solid, but it's just a matter of, pitch command and ultimately, being consistent. So consistency and eliminating mental mistakes is going to be what stands between Louisville and making a deep run and trying to get to Omaha once again. So, hey, but thanks again for making Locked on Louisville your first listen every day. There's going to be another episode out tomorrow or today. I guess I could say. It will be focusing on incoming freshmen for the football team to watch for in off-season practice. We'll also have a mailbag segment. But do yourself a favor before you get out of here. Make a note. Make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So that's going to wrap up this Wednesday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day, and we will see you right back here